Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the GCSAA Podcast presented in partnership with Envu. To learn more about the company and its offerings in the golf industry, check out www.us.envu.com and look for the Turf and Ornamentals Management tab at the top of the page. I'm your host, Scott Hollister, the editor-in-chief of Golf Course Management Magazine, and I'm glad you could join us for episode 52 of the podcast. You know, for the past several years, GCM has partnered with our friends at John Deere to celebrate Women's Golf Day, which this year is actually a whole week, May 30th through June 6th, through a series of stories on our website, gcmonline.com, and episodes of this podcast, all featuring prominent women in golf course management. Well, we're doing it again this year, and that is the basis for this episode, which features a wide-ranging discussion about women in turf, where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. I've turned the hosting duties for this one over to one of these women, Kayla Kipp, who is the equipment manager at the Nemacolin Resort in Pennsylvania, and she is joined by four others: Devin Carroll, a solution development manager with Envu; Rachel DeRoy, an assistant superintendent at Credit Valley Golf and Country Club, which is in Mississauga, Ontario, north of the border; and two recent college grads in Emma Seward from Purdue and Molly Biggs from Kansas State. And this group discusses what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated field like golf course management. And as one of those males in this industry, I found it to be a really thought-provoking discussion that opened my eyes to things I hadn't considered much before. And I hope you'll have the same experience as I did by listening to episode 52 of the GCSA podcast. A quick reminder for you about the new video version of the GCSA podcast that you can find at GCSA TV and on GCSAA's YouTube channel. Still have that tried and true audio version that's available on all the major podcast platforms, but the new video version gives us some cool opportunities that aren't available to us in audio only. So I'd encourage you to check out the new video version of the podcast if you haven't already. With that, here we go. It's episode 52 of the GCSAA podcast, featuring a discussion about women in turf in honor of Women's Golf Day 2023. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you for joining us today for Women in Golf Day podcast. I'm joined here by Emma Seward, Molly Briggs, Rachel DeRoot, and Devin Carroll. I'm Kayla Kipp, equipment manager at Nemacolin in Farmington, Pennsylvania. And we're going to talk about some issues that pertain to women in the industry for the most part, how we get around some harder issues that come up, and why we love what we do. So if I'd like to have everybody introduce themselves. I don't really have an order to go in. How about we start with Molly? Molly, I sat with you on the women's task group with GCSAA this past summer. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
Introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Molly Biggs. I just finished up my undergrad at Kansas State University, and I'll be going on to Iowa State University to get my master's degree in horticulture with an emphasis in turf grass management. And I kind of got involved in just golf course in general by playing golf. I grew up very heavily involved in agriculture, as well as playing golf. And so golf course maintenance was kind of like a good combination of the two things for me. So
awesome. Thank you for being here, Molly. Emma, I'd like to go to you. I've never met you before. I'm sure we'll catch each other at a women's event at some point. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Emma Seward. I just finished up my bachelor's at Purdue University last week, and I accepted a job as a research associate with AQUA, and I got into the industry kind of late. I actually went to college not actually knowing that it existed. I went for athletic training and ended up not liking it, and my advisor pointed me towards turf. She was like, "You like athletics and you like science, why don't we try this?" And then took a class, and that's how I got into it.
Awesome. Well, speaking of science, Dr. Devin Carroll is way deep in the science, and I saw her last year at the Carolinas golf show, and I sat in a class on POA control, and it was very cool. Like I really enjoyed the class. You're a riveting speaker. It was engaging. It was awesome. So, Dr. Carroll, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Good to see you again, and always happy to chat about COA and women in turf. So I am currently a product development manager for Envu. I got my bachelor's degree in turf grass science from Penn State, stayed at Penn State for a master's in agronomy focused in turf. And then last May, graduated with a PhD in turf grass weed science from the University of Tennessee. And I have a story very similar to Molly's. Grew up outdoors with some ties to agriculture, played on my high school's golf team, and my cousin's a golf course superintendent. So when it came time to pick what to do, I already knew what the job was and knew I liked being on the course. So it was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have somebody we can relate to in the golf industry that really draws us in. Rachel, I've never met you either. I'm pretty interested to hear your story as well, and I'm sure I'll catch you around. Rachel's an assistant superintendent.
Yeah, so I'm the assistant superintendent as well as the health and safety coordinator at Credit Valley Golf and Country Club. I've been there. This is my third season with them. I've been at a couple other top courses in the GTA, proud to say that. Kayla, unfortunately never had a chance to have a one-on-one with you, but we've crossed paths a couple times at previous Women in Turf events, and thankfully they're so big that, you can't talk to everybody. So I'm grateful for that as well. My story is a little bit more similar to Emma's in the sense that I went to school for something completely different. I had no idea turf was even something you could major in, let alone something you could build a career in. So I did an undergrad in biology and psychology, had no career path in mind, and just flailed around until I found and thankfully landed a job in turfgrass at Mississauga Golf and Country Club. That was my first job. And then realized, holy crap, I could do this forever, and went to school after the fact to make that happen.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing your little stories there. Mine's a little different. I grew up with my dad, a very mechanically inclined guy. And whenever it came time to graduate high school, I didn't want to be a certified nursing assistant. It wasn't my thing. So I joined the military. I was a heavy equipment mechanic. And when I got out of the military, I just went to a job fair. I just needed a job. I just needed some income coming in. And they hired me onto a golf course. And then they found out I could turn a wrench, and then they got really excited, And whenever I started grinding reels, I really fell in love with the attention to detail, the plant health that goes behind it. It's a little bit of the science, it's a little bit of the labor, it's a big labor of love, and I am real nerdy. So I'm glad to be here with all of you. Emma and Rachel, my next question is going to pertain to you. Especially since you were all over the place in school, trying to figure out where you wanted to land. What drew you to turfgrass? Rachel.
Well, I had a previous summer job working outside. So, going all the way back, you could think of my first job as really what made me land in turf, because I worked at a rec center throughout high school. And then when it came time to go to university, that rec center had a parks department work out of it. So I thought, natural transition, why don't I do that? It works great. They hire a lot of university students for kind of that 4-month stint when they're really busy. It'll work out for me. Great. So I did that, and I was, string trimming and riding lawnmower for 8 hours a day and loved it. So then when my bachelor came to an end, I was thinking, okay, what now? I just need a job. I saw something come up at a golf course, and I thought, I've already worked outside. I've already driven a lawnmower. Like, how hard could this be? Joke's on me. But I started there and really loved it. Really loved being outside. And it just kind of blossomed from there. I had always been like sport inclined, but I had no idea what golf entailed, what maintaining a golf course entailed, until I really just started doing it.
Awesome. And Emma, same thing, a little different?
Yeah, pretty much similar to Rachel. Like I said, my advisor really told me turf existed. And then so I took the first class at Purdue and asked our professor if I could get an internship without even being in the major yet. And kind of fortunately for me, there was a brand new course opening up in my hometown with 3 Purdue grads that were running it. And so I went and interned there, fell in love with it. And then I've stayed in touch with them. But yeah, last summer I did research instead of golf, but that's kind of how I got into it.
Very cool. And Molly, you're interning. I wanted to bring that up. You're interning with the USGA Greens section this summer. How cool is that? Have you started already?
I haven't started yet, no, but I have kind of like this untraditional month-long internship that I get to experience. And so I'm going to spend 2 weeks with an agronomist doing the course consulting services, kind of traveling around with a Midwest agronomist, and then take a couple weeks off. And then I'm going to be in California at Pebble for Advanced Week and Championship Week of the U.S. Women's Open. So that'll be a lot of fun.
I'm so excited to hear that. I have been blessed. I was able to be part of the last 2 Women's Opens. Life-changing. I don't know how else to express that to people. It changed the path of my career, 100%. And Dr. Carroll, I know you've been very involved with research and the behind the scenes stuff. Have you volunteered at any events, opens, championships, tours?
So I have got to volunteer at the Masters a couple times, but unfortunately I've not had the chance to volunteer with one of the female crews. And I know we're talking about golf, but I will say I got to get a little peek of what the ladies volunteering at the Little League Softball World Series were doing. And I can totally speak to the whole life-changing concept. The energy was just unreal, even as a spectator who was just meeting them for a meal.
Thank you for bringing that up. And that was a super awesome event I also attended. And not only to see the 16 women or so that volunteered on the grounds crew, but to see the young girls that were playing ball. They were like, wow, look, we could do that. Like, we could be in this sport long after we're out of our prime. Turf is a career that can last your entire life. You can stay in the sport. Same with golf. Sometimes we incur injuries or things just happen, but it's one way we can stay in the sport and continue to enjoy it for the rest of our lives. I wanted to ask, because we just had Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Are any of you mothers? Everybody's pretty young here.
No.
I didn't think so. It was a question I wanted to ask and see how you would balance work and life. But how do you balance your work-life balance? That's where I was looking for. I know I'm busy a lot. I worked 55 and a half hours last week getting ready for a tournament. It was absolutely crazy. Rachel, I know you're on the ground. Molly and Emma kind of doing the student thing, and Dr. Carroll doing the research stuff. So explain to me a little bit what goes on in your day-to-day. How do you balance work and life and keep sanity? We'll start with Molly.
Yeah, so one thing that I haven't ever really been super good at is like telling people no. I pretty much jump at like every opportunity to do everything. And so I was super involved in high school. And then when I came to college, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm going to focus on the things that I know I'm going to love and like make connections with the people that are going to get me far in my career and professionally and academically. And then meanwhile, I fill my plate with everything that I can. And so I wouldn't go back and do college any other way. Like, I'm very, very glad that I did as many of those things as I possibly could. I was in marching band at K-State. I was my turf club's vice president and then president for 2 of the 3 years I was in college. And then just like on top of that, I was in a cooperative leadership house, which is pretty much just like a sorority, where I was an officer 3 times and just did everything under the sun. And so it was very important to me to get involved in things that would further my academics and my professional career, but also it's important to invest in the other people that you're around. And so like in turf grass, I was one of 2 girls for 2 years and then the only girl for a year in my major. And so it was important to me to also get involved in like my sorority, where I had other female friends and other women I could invest in, because as much as I love the guys and love hanging out with the boys, it's also very important to have female friendships. So that was one thing that I had to make sure I invested in, both in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well. And then honestly, just maintaining organization was something that was very important, and setting like my own boundaries, deciding when I wanted to do something for myself, really setting those boundaries and saying like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with these people. Sorry, I can't make it to this turf club event kind of thing. So it's just like very important to make sure you know what you want to do and maintain your own own track, because everybody's going to be there for you professionally afterwards.
It's very important. Organization is paramount, and I've learned that as well. Dr. Carroll, whenever you're teaching, you're traveling to give classes at different events, how do you keep your sanity through all the travel and all the research and all the stuff you have going on? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a lot going on, a lot of balls in the air. Compared to, working on course, I am fortunate that when I'm not on the road, I do get to work remotely a lot. So, working from home does help in a lot of ways. But there's really two things that I feel like I've picked up in my time in school, and also what I've heard from talking to, other women and other members of the industry. And the first is to build a team you can trust. So really getting to know your team members, building that trust, and just knowing when I take a day off of work or shut my phone off or I am out at the conference that, my coworkers have got it. They know what's going on. They're going to call me if there's a problem, but I'm able to just kind of shut my brain off and know I've got a good team and they're taking care of it. And the other thing is just to put in perspective that whether it's maintaining, golf grass on a golf course, or for me, making sure documents on the computer are up to date, that it's all there tomorrow. And it can be really hard to walk away and feel like you've got to get every single thing done on the to-do list. But I've just tried to be really conscious about remembering it's all going to be there tomorrow, and just making sure I take that time for myself every day.
Awesome. Thank you. It's very important. Emma, I want to ask you something a little bit different. And since you're pretty new, now that you're getting into the turfgrass industry, did you ever imagine the disparity between men and women in the industry? Did you realize that we're a pretty small percentage, around 2%, actually? Did you know that coming in, or is that new?
Coming in, I didn't really know, but then kind of like what Molly said, for undergrads, there was 2 of us last year and I was the only one this year. So that kind of, I was like, oh, there's no one else. And then at the conferences still, going to, there's not really many going around. So it's really fun to be connected with everyone through the Women in Turf. And then, yeah, just even at the course I was at, I was the only female working on the grounds crew. And so, yeah, it's fun. The boys are really nice, but yeah, it's different.
And Rachel, you're on the ground every day. Same thing. How do you keep your work-life balance? And did you know that you would be a unicorn in the industry? That's a very small percentage of the entirety.
I think I did know. I think I knew I would be a unicorn, so to speak. And for a while, I even sought that out. I thought that it was a badge of honor of some kind for whatever reason. It was ingrained in me that, you're one of the few. That means you have the grit to make it. When in reality, it's just nobody knows that this exists. None of the women know that this is an option. We're we have this massive untapped resource of young, bright women in post-secondary that don't even know that they could do this with their life. And that badge of honor was actually a warning sign, a red flag, so to speak, that, something's wrong here. Why don't we have more women out here? But like I said, I leaned into it for a bit. Like many other women on this panel, I was also the only female on a turf crew. I was also, I had worked at the National, which some of you may not know is also a male-only membership. So they have about 400 male golfing members, no female members. So that was an extreme shock. I got used to it for sure, but then going back to being at Credit Valley now, it's nice to be around somewhere where I can be seen and I can see myself on the course as well. When it comes to work-life balance, I know it's been a buzzword for a while now, but it's something that I really had to take seriously this year and last year. I hit a point where I had to reassess my mental health. It was not going great. And I had to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do? All these balls are in the air. Like Devin said, what ball can I drop so that I don't drop the one that is my mental health? So, I mean, I do a couple small things. Again, like Devin said, having a strong team that you know can pick up the slack when you're having an off day, things like that. Taking days off just for no reason. It's an absolute luxury, but I'm very happy to have a management staff that I work for, my boss, that's a big proponent of taking those off, taking time off in the summer so that when we are there, we're our most effective, efficient, happiest self. And one final thing I did that has been an absolute blessing: turn off your email notifications. Turn them off. It sounds ridiculous. But even when, you're making dinner or something like that, and you see that email notification come in, subconsciously, you're thinking about it. You're thinking about, oh, that's something I got to do tomorrow. Oh, that person's asking me to do something. I got to put that on my to-do list. Just turn them off. If it's an emergency, they're not going to contact you over email. They're going to call you. And just wait until you have the 10, 20 minutes to give it the time that it deserves in order to read and answer that email. Because you're not doing yourself justice. You're not doing that email justice by watching it pop up and stewing about it for the next 3 hours.
My favorite move is to just swipe left.
Yes. Bye.
I'll deal with it tomorrow. So you had mentioned some of the things that you girls are experiencing, that you women, that's exciting, and a lot has been happening for women in turfgrass in the last 3-4 years, and it's been really, really awesome. Our Canadian sisters have started before us down here in the US, right? Yeah. So I was really glad to see that. I thought I was a unicorn for 10 years. I was the only female mechanic I knew in turf, and finally met another one, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But I never would have met her if it wouldn't have been for the Real Turf Techs podcast coming along and the Women in Turf team stuff happening. And I want to hear from you, what has made you energized about what's been happening the last couple of years? What do you see that's happening that makes you excited, and maybe something that your colleagues are doing to draw more females in, more young people, female and male? What's exciting to you, Emma? You're pretty new to this, and you're seeing what's available for you to volunteer at and reach out to people, mentor programs.
Yeah, I definitely, recently I've had more and more invites to come volunteer, so that's really cool. I haven't been able to do any of those, but I hope to get there and be able to do that. And then as well, going back to school, I've seen more and more girls start taking our turf classes there, so that's really exciting, and been talking to them. And it's just fun to see more people come up and through. I know I'm pretty new to it, but still seeing the girls that are freshmen or sophomores in college come try it and then be just as excited is really fun.
Right. Yeah. Imagine 7 years or so, and you weren't seeing these invites for tournaments and whatnot. I mean, it makes a difference. We're making strides in the right direction. Dr. Carroll, you've been here watching this kind of unfold. I mean, how does that make you feel as a woman?
Absolutely amazing. And Rachel kind of touched on this, but what's really been exciting me lately is that when I started, I was a unicorn. People were taking my picture and they were asking me to, do magazine articles. And I'm like, yeah, this is so cool. I'm doing it. I have the thickest skin. But what excites me so much now is that I'm not a unicorn, right? You go to conferences and women are fewer, but I don't feel alone anymore. You walk around and you see more women, and there's room for growth. But what's so encouraging about that is, you touched on earlier at Little League Softball World Series, the younger girls. It's when I go to conferences now and get to meet a college student, and we exchange phone numbers and we follow each other on Twitter. And just to know that they have those relationships so much earlier in their career is something I never had. And just seeing that build and, seeing that network grow has been just amazing.
And at the Little League Softball World Series, the hashtag See It Be It was the tagline. It was all over Twitter. It was all over Facebook. We were really pushing that. We want people to see that this is real. It's open to females, males, young people, old people. We can make it work. Molly, like you said, you say yes to everything. You have an affinity for not saying no. And sitting on the inaugural women's task group, knowing that it was the first, how did that make you feel moving forward?
Yeah, so it was really cool. It kind of happened by chance. I was sitting in my 706 turf grass class, and Sheila Finley was our guest lecturer that day, and she just said, "Hey, we're doing this women in turf task group this week at GCSAA's headquarters, and I know that you're not too far, so why don't you come over and join us?" So it was super cool to get to come make those connections and meet those women. I hadn't really met that many industry professionals who were women before that. Like, it had all been men. I had quite a few industry connections, but none of them were women. So it was really cool to get to like meet professional women who were doing what I want to do in turfgrass. And then the other way that I have kind of like seen women and been like really excited about it is specifically at the Turf Bowl. This year, when teams were getting called up on stage for winning their awards, it was really cool to get to like sit there and count the number of girls up there. I'm sure, Emma, you had a very similar experience. Like, it was very cool to see the number of teams with a girl on their team that were placing in the top 10. So it was a really fun thing, especially for college women, to see like, oh, look, there's other girls up there doing just the same thing that I'm doing, also being very successful in it.
I was doing the same thing. I was right there with you. Like, yes, there's 2 on that team. All right. This is awesome. So those are the things we're excited to see. One of the things I was really excited to see more recently was the First Green program, reaching out to classes, elementary school, middle school, high school. It's all tailored to whichever grade you're in, but just bringing students, younger than grad students, to the golf course to say, science, technology, the equipment, and see that it's a career and it's enjoyable. You're outside. Same thing. A lot of you related to on the sports side, just being outdoors. So First Green is something that I want to get started here as well. I've only been here for a year and a couple months, but there's talks about it. So I definitely love seeing that. Now that I know kind of what you guys have been excited about, is there anything you would like to see more from the industry, from GCSAA, maybe outside organizations and companies? What could they do to support women more in the industry? Rachel.
I feel like this isn't necessarily something that they could do to support just women, but to support diversity in all types, diversity in age, diversity in sexual orientation, like just using more inclusive language, creating more inclusive, equitable spaces, whether that's, theoretically by using more inclusive language when it comes to recruiting and hiring, or more practically, like creating gender neutral locker rooms, like one big locker room and a couple stalls, like who's actually stripping down to their skivvies in the locker room. But just, not creating any physical or unbeknownst barriers to somebody that could make them feel uncomfortable. You don't know what somebody's like, you don't know what they're comfortable with sharing with you. So just keeping everything, as benign as you possibly can. The number of times you've heard a speaker, a lecturer at a conference say, "All you guys." It's like, hi, I'm still here. It's small things, but I think that they're going to go a long way in the long term to making more people feel more comfortable.
Great answer. Emma, anything else you would like to see from the industry or outside organizations?
Yeah.
Help us
I would
along?
just say I think even to just kind of piggybacking off what Rachel said, I really like that she mentioned changing the language. I agree. There's been many times where I've sat in on stuff and they're like, all the guys, all everything. So just that change to everyone in the room or just anything would be a great help, as well as I think just continuing to do things like we're doing right now, as well as when any media goes out, starting to include more diversity. A lot of pictures that I see online are always highlighting the men, the men in the profession, doing great. Just continuing to highlight the females, as well as other, like Rachel said, other ages, other backgrounds as well. Yeah.
I love that answer. And I have noticed GCSAA has been doing a lot, and maybe it's just because I see GCM magazine out a lot. I've been seeing a lot more females on covers and in articles, and it's uplifting to me. Devin, you feel the same? Do you have any other input? You want to see anything else from industry partners?
Yeah, two things I could think of. So at a higher level, I would really like to see some better mentorship programs. You did hit on this, but the ladies up in Canada have done a phenomenal job and have a whole program for mentoring. And especially in the States, we have some Facebook groups and we're all trying to stay in touch, but I would like to see a little bit more of a formal program where we can get in touch with college students or even high school students earlier on to just kind of help shepherd them, through those formative times and make sure that they're comfortable in the industry. But one of the questions that I get a lot, more so from the individual superintendent, is what can I do, right? What can I do tomorrow to make this better? And this probably sounds kind of funny, but my go-to answer is order ladies polos, ladies.
Yes, Devin.
Amen.
But I did an internship once where they only had men's largest polos, right? And I looked ridiculous. I felt ridiculous. It was just a symbol that I wasn't fitting in and part of the team. And then I did my second internship where the guy calls me ahead of time and said, "Hey, I've never had a woman on the crew before. Would you like me to order you ladies stuff?" And just knowing that I was showing up in an environment where he wanted me to be there and he had thought about it, and there was a Tyvek suit in my size, it made the world of a difference. So might be nitpicky, but it's something immediately actionable, I think.
It's not. I don't see that as nitpicky at all. I'm a female mechanic, and how many mechanics clothes do you think they've ordered here in the past 25 years for a woman? None. So they asked. They said, "Would you prefer a women's cut pants?" So you have room where you need it and not where you don't. And I was like, that'd be really nice. It would make me feel pretty comfortable whenever I'm working 12-hour days. So yeah, that's definitely.
I think that level of comfort and just feeling like you fit in and you have the gear that you need to be successful, it matters.
Absolutely. And same what Rachel said with the locker rooms. If you interview at a golf course and they have just one restroom, not everybody's very clean. Men's rooms can get pretty nasty, and just to have a separate restroom for the ladies on the crew is monumental to us. It is for me anyway. And Molly, anything else that you would like to see?
Yeah, so I really, really like what Devin said about just like the little things make a huge difference. The things like having a separate restroom and ordering women's cut shirts. And my second internship that I did this last summer, they had a talk with the crew beforehand that was just clean up your language. Like it's not a men's locker room. We don't need to have men's locker room talk all the time. Be respectful of the fact that she's a woman. And obviously I wasn't going to go in there and change the standard of the entire men's crew, but he said it's going to be different having a girl on staff. Like, we just need to acknowledge that and make sure she feels welcome, like she has a home here. And that was huge to me. So like the biggest difference that I've kind of noticed being in school and then being in the industry is like coming through school with my peers. It's not awkward. Like, I feel like I have a part of the team with the guys. Like, I'm not just one of the guys, but I have a home and I have a place on their team. But then when you transition into the industry, it's like a lot of professionals are not used to that. Having a woman around. And so it's a lot more awkward. And I felt a lot more out of place in the professional world than I did in school. And so it's those little things, transitioning them from being in school to being in the professional world, that are going to make the biggest difference. Things like making sure women have women's cut clothes and making sure women have a bathroom to use. And if you go on a work trip, like, don't make it awkward about the fact that she needs a different room than everyone else does. Just things like that. Normalizing women having a place in the industry without it being awkward is what is going to make the biggest difference.
We'll return to this episode in a minute, but now a word from Envu, which is committed to working with golf course superintendents to accomplish great things on the course every day. The company has the expertise and innovative solutions to help you navigate turf challenges year-round while achieving the most consistent playing conditions possible. Taking preventative action now is the best way to protect cool season turf and limit damage from root-destroying pests like Pythium root rot, patch diseases, and nematodes. Later this year, Envu is launching Rosilia Root Health Solution, an all-in-one product that will safeguard your roots and keep your turf healthy and playable all season long. Warm season superintendents know that this time of year is a great time to apply a pre-emergence herbicide to treat tough summer weeds like sedges while they're young and easier to control. Solutions like Spectacle Flow and Celsius Extra herbicides can help control existing weeds as well as prevent future weed encroachment. Mild temperatures and spring rains create an ideal environment for the spread of Pythium on warm and cool season turf. Banol fungicide is an outstanding solution to keep your greens healthy this spring and set them up for success all season long. And right now you can save big with the Envu Banol fungicide first program between May 1st and June 30th. Visit rewards.envu.us to log in or sign up for My Envu Rewards. Contact your Envu representative or go to us.envu.com/golf-solutions to learn more about the agronomic solutions that can help you stay ahead of summer weeds, keep your roots healthy, and give your golfers a playable course all year long. Always read and follow label instructions, and remember that not all products are registered for use in all states. Our thanks again to everyone at Envu for their support of the GCSAA podcast. And now back to this episode.
Has there been a specific moment in your career or on the job that you could share? If you don't want to share, that's okay. Where you thought that you were treated differently or you were at a disadvantage professionally because you were a woman? Is there anything you'd like, Rachel?
It's more like, how much time do you got? It's not, has something happened?
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially, and through no fault of their own, like I think the management staff at National Golf Club of Canada is fantastic. They always made me feel welcome. They made me feel like I had a place. Sometimes it's the golfer's perception that can hurt the most. So sometimes, golfers, even at private golf clubs that don't have a beer cart, will assume that you're the beer cart girl. And it's like, no, I don't have a Pabst Blue Ribbon in my toolbox for you. Does that look like what I'm doing right now? And it's just like, I mean, we joke about it and we laugh about it, but really it's a coping mechanism. Like, did I feel good in that moment when somebody asked me for a beer? No, I felt out of place. I felt awkward, like Molly said. And it's like, okay, now I have to be the one to go to my boss and bring this up and make a whole hullabaloo about it because I don't feel comfortable when, the guy working on the bunker down the fairway doesn't even have to worry about this. This is so far out of his realm of possibilities. And here I am having to live it every day.
Yeah.
It just like, it doesn't seem fair. And I don't know what else to say. It doesn't seem fair. Right.
Do you have any ideas going forward to educate our guests? Our assistant superintendent is a female. She's been here for 3 years. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She does not drive the beer cart.
Again, like I'm so happy to work for who I work for. They again have always highlighted me as part of their team. They made an announcement when I was brought on with my picture and everything saying, hey, if you see you're on course, like make sure you say hi, so that it wasn't like assumed that I was another summer student and I was, just there for the summer and not working very hard, that kind of thing. Because I've had that before too, where they just see, you're on the younger side, you're on the south side of 30 or 35, and they assume, oh, you're a student. This isn't your career. There's no way it possibly could be. So I think that really helped. A lot of it, I think, is slowly changing. The culture around golf is becoming, a little bit more progressive, slowly but surely. It's always been and this might be a hot take, it's always been a privileged sport. It's always been a white male sport. It's always been for the people who are rich and have the time to spend and have the money to spend. And so because it's always been one demographic, there's been a very similar mindset across that demographic of, you know, I don't think that this woman belongs here. And thankfully that's getting phased out. A lot of what we can do to change golfer perspective is just addressing those issues when they come up. Like, don't be afraid to go to your superior with the unflattering comment that somebody made to you on the second hole. Don't be afraid to bring it up and to cause a fuss about it. If it's upsetting you, it's worth causing a fuss. And the worst that could happen is that golfer has some sort of vendetta against you. But do you really care about their opinion if they're gonna make that snide remark at you anyway? I think it takes a lot of courage to go and try and make that change. And even just to have their opinions challenged can create a lot of positive change.
Amen. Dr. Carroll, do you have any moments that have really been like a smack in the face, just like this, that was totally wrong? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, this is, I guess, fortunate but unfortunate. So fortunately, I haven't really had to deal with many situations of being treated differently in the sense of people not being accepting or not thinking I could do it. But a lot of cases of people saying or doing inappropriate things. And it can be really hard to go to work day after day when you know this person thinks this, has said this, has done this kind of weird thing. So one of the stories that comes to mind is one of the places I worked at, there was a repeat offender who was frequently making comments he shouldn't. And I was at a point in my career where I was scared, even though he was another crew member and not leadership. Like, you're scared, like Rachel said, you're scared to do something, you're scared to make waves. I don't want a reputation that I'm hard to have on a crew. But one day he pulls up to me and he makes a comment, and I mean, I just handed it back to him and just laid into him. And I'm not proud that I lost my emotions, but I am proud of myself that I found my voice. And that was really kind of that critical light switch in me of, no, I don't have to take this, and this doesn't have to be this way, and I'm going to point it out and put a stop to it. And so, like Rachel said earlier, my advice would just be, as uncomfortable as it might seem, if you call someone out, it's a lot more uncomfortable for them. So got to just do it. That's the only way we're going to make change happen, is to point it out.
Amen. I have an example I'll share with you real quick. And it had to do with my former employer. And, you know, I had been doing this job for 9 years at that point. And I said, look, you need to order this, or it's going to do this. And they didn't listen to me. Anyway, I ended up leaving. And it was funny, a year later, after I've been gone, they call me back to come look at their problem. And I'm like, well, I told you a year ago what it was, but you didn't want to listen to me at the time for whatever reason. Now you do. I don't particularly feel like, I don't feel as though it's because I was a woman. But, you know, if somebody's been doing this for 9 years, they have a pretty good handle on things. And part of me still believes that it may have been for that reason. So it's kind of, it paid me back in the end. But Molly, do you have any situations that have just been straight up uncomfortable, or
Yeah.
you felt disadvantaged?
Like Dr. Carroll said with the polos earlier, my first internship I ever showed up to, he handed me 4 men's large polos and was like, here you go. And I couldn't make it work. They were way too big. I couldn't work efficiently. I was very uncomfortable, very embarrassed to show up to work in my uniform. I didn't want to be there. I didn't like getting dressed to go in the morning. And when I addressed it with my employer, he basically was like, well, this is what you get. So I had to go to the pro shop and purchase my own uniforms to wear for that internship, which was not really fair. Like, it was, everybody else got uniforms provided for them. And so that kind of like hurt. And it was more of just the ignorance than like a personal vendetta because I was a woman. Like, he just didn't like care or appreciate that I needed a different outfit than everyone else did. And then the second time wouldn't be anything to do with like an employer or any crew that I've worked on. Most every crew that I've been a part of has been very accepting and very appreciative. But it's the golfers. I was working like a 4th of July weekend and out hand watering greens, and got a very inappropriate comment from a golfer on a green, and just kind of like was taken back, didn't really know what to say, didn't know how to like answer the question he'd asked me. And so I was just like, I'll come back and hope that the green doesn't burn up in the meantime. And so I like left, went over to another green, and I had like a little route. And so I was on my second green of the route making my return, and the same question got asked to me again by a different golfer, completely different group. The two hadn't interacted in the meantime, and I was absolutely baffled. I did not know what to say. And the second time it happened, the golfer was with his wife, and just absolutely mind boggled, did not know what to say. Finished watering my greens route. And I like went and talked to my boss. I just said, I don't know what to do. Like, this made me uncomfortable. I don't necessarily want the members like kicked out of the club for this, but like, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel about this situation, because it seemed so casual that it should be fine, but I do not feel fine about it. And my employer was like, absolutely not. That's not fine. Like, if these guys are saying these things to you out on the golf course, what do you think they're doing to the females that work inside the clubhouse, like serving them alcohol and being wait staff and things like that? Like, he just really encouraged me to, anytime something like that happens, to report it to HR, because odds are if they're doing it to you out on the golf course, they're really doing it to somebody in the clubhouse. And so to report all types of situations like that, just to protect all women that work at golf clubs, not even just out on the golf course.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear all of you have brought up communication. You didn't just let it ride. And I feel many years ago it would have been just keep it to yourself. Just let it, just blow it off. It's fine. Forget it. But things have changed, and you have a voice. You're communicating, you're letting folks know that, this isn't okay. And what you're doing is educating at the same time. So you're communicating, they're learning, and things are changing. So I hope you see that. And it has to do with every one of us. So thank you very much. Emma, I'm going to ask you real quick, anything you've experienced?
Fortunately, I haven't run into anything. Like, the course that I was at, both the crew and the members were very welcoming. And I enjoyed our members. They always asked questions, and like, I always felt very welcome and comfortable there.
Good. I'm super glad to hear that.
We're moving in the right direction. Yes.
Right. I see a lot of smiles, and yes, I'm cheering over here. This is awesome. So now that we're talking and things are communicating, we're moving forward. Looking at the young women that are going to be getting into the industry, like Emma and Molly, what's the best piece of advice that you can give to somebody that's looking to get into the golf course business, into turf grass, into research, teaching, superintendent, assistant, intern? Molly, what's your best piece of advice?
Wow, put me on the spot first, I guess. I would say my best piece of advice, I knew that it was going to be mostly men coming into the industry. And not that scared me, but I didn't really know how to feel about it. I didn't know if I should be nervous. I didn't know if I should be okay with it. But what I've realized and learned in my short stint of time so far in the industry is that it's important to use your different perspective as a woman to take a different approach to problems that continue to come up. Men aren't necessarily going to know how to handle every situation because you are different as a girl. But one thing that is very great about being a girl is you are equipped most of the time with all of the tools that you need to be able to solve your own problems. You just have to be able to speak up and let the guys know your different approach at solving a problem.
I've seen a lot of conflicts be resolved with communication just because they don't see it from our side. And whenever we can collaborate on a professional level at a nice level tone, things work out for the better.
Absolutely.
Emma, what's your best piece of advice?
I would say my best piece of advice is to just be open. Like, I think going into like conference rooms or like classrooms that are full of guys, it can be really intimidating, but like going in there, knowing that you like belong, like feeling that you belong in there, and like just being able to talk to everyone and create networks. Like, especially I would say at like my first conference, I was very shy and held back, and I regret it. Like, network, talk to people, like expand like your like community as much as you can, like because people out there are like willing to help you and willing to like guide you through the industry and make connections and put you where you need to be. So just like when you go to like places or tournaments or conferences, make sure like you're not standing in the corner. Like reach out, talk to people, shake hands, meet new people, for sure.
And I encourage all of us to be the person that reaches out and, hey, you seem kind of quiet. Nice to meet you. I'm so and so. And reach out to other people that may seem like they're in their show. So yeah, great, awesome. Dr. Carroll, what's your best piece of advice?
Yeah, so two things that go hand in hand and tie in really nicely to what Emma said. Ask for help and verbally share your goals. I think particularly as women, we tend to see asking for help as a sign of weakness. It is not. Asking for help is the key to success. We all talked about how we have so much going on in our lives, and the way to get that done is to admit that you need help and just, graciously take it. At the end of the day, this is a super helpful industry. And when it comes to sharing your goals, whether that's you want to get into research or you want to do an internship at this course, you want to volunteer somewhere, this industry, man or woman, wants to see each other succeed. But if they don't know what you want, they can't give it to you and they can't help. So just be really vocal about what you're looking for. And I'm willing to bet that somebody on Twitter, at a conference or whatever will make it happen for you.
Heck yeah, Rachel. We're speaking up. We're being communicators and networkers. We're doing it. What do you got for us?
I would just say find your kind. Find your team of people that's going to help you to be the most successful. That team of people is going to listen when you have issues, give you the help when you ask for it. They're going to be there for you, providing those uniforms ahead of time. Those are the people that you want to find. It doesn't matter so much where you work, the prestige of where you work, what you do at your job. It matters who you do it with, who you do it for. Because at the end of the day, you could be at the nicest golf course, you could do the highest paying job, but if you're not happy, if you're not comfortable, if you don't feel valued by your team members, it really means jack shit.
I don't know if we can say that, Scott. Can
Okay. And then it really means nothing.
Right. Yeah, finding your value is very important. And I know personal experience, I had to move courses. I didn't feel valued where I was. And now it's amazing. I've got women's clothes, women's locker room. We communicate really well, morning meetings every day. We have a rock mentality here, and that's not a bad thing. And I've just been so excited, and I'm so honored to be a guest host on the podcast today with all of you. Is there any last words? I mean, we just gave our best piece of advice, but any shout outs to the industry, what you've loved seeing, what you don't want to see stop, just going forward. I want to continue to see the women's events, the big women in turf events going on at the Open and the Little League Softball World Series. And I'd like to see events start happening at men's opens and everything. I just want to see it all over the place. But the more we're seen, the more other people see us doing it, and the better off we are. Anything else anybody would like to add?
You nailed it. See it, be it.
Go ahead, Devin.
Nope.
See it,
See it, be it. That's it.
all right. Yeah.
I would say
just go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
All good. I would say just continually meeting new women that are coming up, like Molly, like Emma. I've had the pleasure of meeting Devin already, but I never want to feel like I've met all the women in the industry. That should not be possible. I never want it to be possible. Just keep that number jacking up.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me be your guest host today. I loved our conversation. A lot of exciting things going on, and I hope to run into all of you either this year or next year. Thanks for joining us on the Women in Turfgrass podcast for Women's Golf Day.
Well, that puts a wrap on episode 52 of the GCSAA podcast. I want to thank Kayla Kipp, Devin Carroll, Rachel DeRoy, Emma Seward, and Molly Biggs for taking the time to be a part of our Women's Golf Day podcast that we're presenting in partnership with John Deere. You can read more about these women and their journeys in the turf industry on the GCM website, which is gcmonline.com, in stories that will appear during the entire celebration of Women's Golf Day, which runs from May 31st to June 6th. Much more good stuff to come here on the GCSAA podcast, both in audio and the new video version available on GCSAA TV and the association's YouTube channel. So stay tuned for all that. But until then, we'll say goodbye with a thank you to our podcast editor, Evan Shapiro, to everyone at Bayer for their ongoing sponsorship of this podcast, to the 9 members of the GCSAA Board of Directors, to my coworkers and colleagues at GCSAA headquarters in Lawrence, Kansas, and of course, my thanks to each of you for subscribing, downloading, and listening and/or watching. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch up again soon on the next episode of the GCSAA podcast.